I'd like to thank Chairman Leahy and Senator Grassley for holding this important hearing today. Last week, as we've all heard, Chairman Leahy went to the Senate floor and asked unanimous consent for the Senate to take up and pass this important bipartisan reauthorization bill to sustain this critical federal, state, local partnership, the Bulletproof Vest Partnership, and to support the men and women of law enforcement who keep our communities safe across the country. I was deeply upset, disappointed, and angered that one of my colleagues continues to block consideration of this bill on the floor, and I voiced my disagreement with his arguments, his suggestions that somehow the Constitution prevents us from having a federal-state partnership, and somehow our budget and other reasons restrain us from having this cost-effective, proven, demonstrably valuable partnership. I'd like to enter my full floor remarks into the hearing record, hopefully without objection. The bottom line here is that this bill must pass, and we should not rest in our efforts to do what's right by public safety officers all over this country while they continue to risk their lives. In the middle of Police Week, while we mourn the loss of 268 officers who died and whose names have been added to the police memorial, between last night's candlelight vigil and tomorrow's wreath-laying ceremony, we have an opportunity here to once again, in a bipartisan way, commit ourselves to a positive and hopeful effort, reaffirming the federal commitment to state and local law enforcement and to officer safety. This is not only constitutionally permissible in my view, but a solemn obligation. For Delaware, the Bulletproof Vest Partnership and its benefits are real, tangible, and personal. Chief Horseman of the Capitol Police is with us here today, along with Sergeant Mike Manley and Corporal Steve Reinhardt, known to me, who are here because of the grace of God and the Bulletproof Vest Partnership. The two vests that they were wearing, provided through this program, when they confronted an active shooter in the Wilmington courthouse in February 2013, literally saved their lives. All of Delaware is grateful for your service and grateful to God for your safety and your continued ability to contribute to our communities. Thank you. To Officer Carrizales, thank you so much for your inspiring and moving testimony, for the letters from your daughter's class, for the support of your husband, and for the way that you helped us understand in a very personal way, yet again, how vital and how important these bulletproof vests are for keeping law enforcement officers safe all over this country. Thank you for your service, thank you for your heroism, and thank you for your particularly compelling and focused testimony today. Some of my colleagues, as you've heard, have questioned whether there ought to be any federal partnership in supporting local law enforcement. I happen to be from the small state of Delaware, where crime crosses city and county and state lines routinely. You're from the somewhat larger state of Texas. From your perspective, yes, a country unto itself, I know. From your perspective, do you think these vests contribute to the national interest in public safety? Are there things you've seen that have caused you to believe that you have confronted criminal activity that crosses state or even international borders in your public service?
Yes, absolutely. I think that, and I want to make sure that I understand your question. You're asking me if the things that I've seen personally in the line of duty would have an impact on how the citizens perceive.
Do you see some value in a federal role in supporting state and local law enforcement, given how criminals don't stop when they hit the border between the city where you patrol and the county around it, or the city and the county and the state around it, or the city, county, and the state, and frankly, even countries around it?
Well, yes, I absolutely do see that, that there's value there. Two of the three suspects in my case had been deported back to their country, their native country, and come back into the country illegally, I think, at least once before. So there is a need. There is definitely a need to have involvement there. I don't know exactly. I'm not in the know on the objections of the person that you're referring to, but I would submit to that person. I hope that you never have to call us to save your life, and we don't have a vest on, and someone kills us, because then we can't help you. And people will flee, and they will leave the country. It happens all the time. It was just by good police work and the support of Crime Stoppers. In this case, we were able to take all of these three suspects into custody before that could happen.
Senator Coburn's comments on the floor in response to Senator Leahy's request for us to proceed to this bill literally touched on his view that the Constitution bars us somehow from a federal, state, local partnership. He also made other comments about cost and about the appropriateness in a deficit of our contributing. You referenced the fact that many local agencies wouldn't be providing bulletproof vests otherwise, that they would simply be leaving it up to their officers to purchase them.
Correct.
One of the key federal roles in this program is that the National Institutes of Justice test and certify which vests are appropriate, are current, are fitted appropriately, use the latest technology. Does it give you any additional comfort as a law enforcement officer, knowing not only that the vest you were wearing had been paid for jointly by your agency and the federal government, but also that it had been certified to be capable of protecting you and was appropriately fitted?
Yes, absolutely gives me comfort to know that that any vest purchased with funds from this grant or this, if this bill is passed, any of these vests, we're not just getting secondhand vests because we're helping you buy them. That's not the impression that I'm getting. And sometimes that can be the case when officers are faced to just kind of get what they get, and that's it. We don't get paid a lot of money. Most officers can't afford to buy their own custom vests. So we have to rely on funds or what we get from our agencies. It gives me great comfort to know that not only would this bill provide those funds, but they would also make sure that we were wearing vests that were tested and tried and proven to save our life when it mattered most. Yes.
And as I look at the list of the agencies in Delaware that have been able to provide current custom-fitted vests for their officers, it runs from our one mid-sized city to our many small towns and our many rural areas. And I think your own experience reminds us it's important that we continue this federal, state, local partnership. One last question, if I might, Mr. Chair, to Chief Zachary. Thank you so much for your leadership and for what the IACP does to continue nationally a commitment to excellence in policing. I would welcome your comments on the IACP DuPont Kevlar Survivors Club. This partnership has documented over 3,100 officers' lives who've been saved from wearing body armor. Could you just describe the work of the Survivors Club, how they document these saves? You pretty dramatically demonstrated how some have been documented. And then talk to us, if you would, about why innovative technology, current technology, in vests is important as criminals continue to develop their means of assaulting law enforcement officers.
Yes, sir. I'd be honored to do so. The IACP DuPont Kevlar Club, I had the privilege and honor of being the chair over the State Association of Chiefs of Police, known to us as SACOP, which oversees and partners with IACP as one of the many IACP programs into the DuPont Survivors Club. And what happens there is we highlight at a very nice luncheon. We have all the state police chiefs there, all the state executive directors there, and we highlight at a luncheon the stories of the heroic acts of police officers who can walk the streets today because they wore their bulletproof vests. As was demonstrated by your officers in Delaware, we highlight those stories, and we have a police officer, not an administrator, we have a police officer get up and say, "This is my story," as we heard the officer say. "This is what happened. I was wearing my vest. Here's where I was hit. The vest did exactly what it should. The bullet was embedded in the vest, not in my chest, not in my stomach." And so, yes, sir, that's, I mean, I can go into details, but I know time is sensitive. The second question on your technology, if I may, is the NIJ. Let me reiterate. Criminals do not respect city limits signs, county borders, state borders, or global borders. As I've traveled the world representing IACP, criminals are criminals. They could care less where they find their prey as long as they can find it. And it is very comforting to know that the federal government, under an NIJ standard, is independent. And when I buy a vest for my officers, I know it's got that independent NIJ stamp, not that of a vendor or a special interest group, an independent laboratory that looks out for one thing, that is the safety and the wear and tear on the vest. I've been to their lab, and it's amazing.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
We're going to have votes
Thank you for your leadership.
well, we just